When we did those flashback scenes on, for example, when the revolutionary soldiers killed a nobleman for the first time, this gives the players more information. If they would have done this during the LARP, that would have given them more information about the story events to the player, and they get through the experience of the LARP during the runtime of the LARP. So if they would have done it during the LARP. So they still might do the meta technique with their character involved, but it's sort of a communication between the players. And that goes into the second definition, that is communication in the LARP between the participants when the same thing is not communicated between the characters. So for example, it could be, there's a method used called the inner monologue, where in some games you use the inner monologue technique, and I can ask someone for an inner monologue, and they will speak out the character's inner thoughts for that moment. So for example, maybe I am, as a fisherman, playing together with a nobleman, and they are trying to sort of make me transport cloth across the English Channel. And I ask that person for an inner monologue. That person might say, "Oh, I really hope this fisherman now understands that what I actually want is to go myself across the English Channel, and I'm so scared that they will expose me to the revolutionary soldiers." So that might be like the inner thoughts of the character. But my character doesn't hear that. My character is still talking about transporting cloth. But as a player, I hear that from the other player about their character. So a little bit about this workshop. We'll talk more and we'll try out, and now we'll explain some meta techniques that are normally used. But we're going to start out talking a little bit, and then we're going to try out some of the techniques. But there's a term that is sort of connected to meta techniques. It's called replacement rules. And replacement rules, this is like, since they're an ongoing debate, there's no like, this is how it is. But I don't think that replacement rules are the same thing as meta techniques, but I think they're interestingly connected to the meta techniques. Replacement rules is rules that you do, for example, instead of actually, if there's a war LARP, we don't actually kill each other as players. We use buffer swords to replace the real swords. So we use them as if they were real swords. So we replace them, for example. But buffer in itself, buffer being the term for fighting with these rubber weapons. Buffer in itself is not, you don't die from it, but we replace this dying with these buffer swords. Replacement rules are usually used for doing things that you want the character to experience, but you don't want the player to experience. For example, sex, intimate love in any kind of way, or violence. So me as a player, I don't really want to get my leg chopped off during LARP, but I think it would be super interesting to see how that kind of a serious wound would affect the character and the character's relationship to the rest of the soldiers not being able to march with them anymore. So therefore, we want to experience it, the experience for the character, but not the player. And the sexual part is, of course, also there for this part. I don't really want to have sex, or I don't want to kiss the other player, but I want my character to be in a complete love affair with another character. And for that we have replacement rules. That is, there's a lot of different techniques used in different kind of games depending on how much of this you want. But there's one technique that is used where you touch the other person's forearms up to the shoulders, and this represents sex. and you can do it in a quite intimate way. So you sort of get the feeling of having an intimate experience together, but you don't break sort of the common ground for the normal behavior of having sex with another person. But you still get the feeling for the character of we have had that, this relationship has had that in that relationship, so you can play it out. And these things sort of are connected towards meta techniques, where you sort of want to say something to the players that is not possible to go through the characters to say in the runtime of the LARP. Does this make sense? Yeah. For you who were here last time, and I don't know if Lars has mentioned this in his talks, but there's a theory on how you can design games called the mixing desk of LARP. And this theory is still sort of, what do you call it? It's developing still. So I think it's not set yet. But if you Google it, you will find the mixing desk of LARP. You'll find the theory in the complete theory. But shortly, you could say that the mixing desk of LARP, they sort of portray how you design a game as a mixing desk for lighting. And you have different faders that you can put in different settings. And the different faders affect different kind of things. So for example, you have a game master fader, how much active of a game master you want to have. Or you have a fader that is sort of, the player have complete control over the creation of their character, or the designer have created all the characters in the game. So you can put the faders in different kind of settings. And this will affect the game in different kind of ways. And there's not like, this is a good setting and a bad setting, it's just like there's different kind of settings. So for meta techniques, what you can do is start with choosing what do we want meta techniques at all. There are a lot of games that doesn't use any kind of meta techniques. They are completely just going the experience through the character. So everything they do is character against character. And not communicating things between the players about the characters during LARP, during the time of the LARP. So first of all, you can say, I don't want meta techniques at all. But but if you want them, what you have to think about is if you want them to be intrusive, or what's the other word for it? Discrete, yeah. Intrusive or discrete. For example, we used meta techniques, the black box, yesterday. That was a meta technique for communicating things between players. But that was a discrete meta technique in the sense that you could choose if you would see it or not. You could choose to be just in this game, not doing any kind of black box things at all. You would only maybe see people going out and not being in the scene, doing something else, but you would not see the meta technique if you didn't choose to see it. And intrusive is more, maybe instead of having a black box, we could do the same kind of scenes, but in here. And as a game master, maybe I would sort of like, okay, let's stop the LARP, and let's see this scene about around the fishermen and how their first smuggling of nobles went. So we sort of, that's very intrusive. You have to, you can't opt out of seeing this. You can't choose not to use meta technique. You have to have it in your game. So that's an intrusive part of it. So yesterday you were quite discreet. We didn't have so much meta techniques in the LARP here. Maybe you could argue that the act breaks is a meta technique, because then we do sort of break the game and communicate things between players and then continue the game. So that was sort of, if you say that that is a meta technique, that would be an intrusive meta technique, because you couldn't opt out of doing it. So, what do you think is like the pros and cons of having intrusive or discrete meta techniques? Like, what's good with being up on intrusive, and what's good about being discrete?
Discrete is a big character. Discrete would pick your character.
Yeah.
Coming in. Something.
So if you want, you still want to be in your character all the time and not at all try to think about we are players playing a game here, then you wouldn't be disturbed if it were in discrete setting. Absolutely, yeah.
An advantage for intrusive is it's a good method of upping the ante, escalating the situation.
Yeah. I would say that some of these are things I've already said also, that intrusive is it's easy to opt in when it's intrusive. It's easy to use them. They are not like when you have this black box that you have to go to, you have to yourself you have to sort of initiate it yourself and go find people to play with, and that takes it's hard to sort of it could be hard to use. That's what I'm trying to say. So it's easy to opt in intrusive, but it's hard to opt out because you have to be there because it's in your face the whole time. And also a good thing with intrusive and discrete that I think we had some example of yesterday, that is people being like, oh, did that happen in the black box? That the transparency, if you use it intrusively, everyone would know about it and everyone would see it. But if you have it discreetly and somewhere else, there might be a lot of things happening that you haven't seen or understood that was happening. So transparency is good with the intrusive part. We also sometimes have a problem with the discrete because if you have a black box somewhere else in a game, it doesn't have to be a black box, but it often is if it is discrete. If you have a black box somewhere else, it might be so fun to use that people sort of gather up by the black box, and in the gaming area where you're supposed to play the game, the real game, there's no people to play with. And you sit there and be like, okay. And it sort of breaks the illusion for you too, or break the character illusion, because you sort of understand that everyone is off playing meta techniques things. Yeah. Okay. Actually, I think we're gonna break off me talking and try out one of the techniques that are commonly used. And it's perfect because there's 4 of you. And what we're going to do is that we're going to rise up. And we're going to work in pairs. So if you pair up. All right, and we're going to do sort of like the shadow technique. So we're going to change places, but when we walk, one of you are going to be the player playing a character. And the other one is going to be a shadow. The shadow is invisible and doesn't. It's not there for real. It's sort of a director in a theater, you could say, a shadow director. So the shadow is not there. No one knows about the shadow. You can't see the shadow. You can't interact with the shadow. The character doesn't know the shadow is there. But it's only sort of a shadow director to the player. And how we're going to test this out is that you choose who starts being the player and the shadow, and you're going to try both of them, so don't think about that too hard. So if you choose which to start with. So as a shadow, you follow behind the player, you follow them around, and you put in more stuff on them to play on in different kinds of ways. And the first way we're going to try out is making sounds. So if I tell the players to walk around as if you're tired, the shadow behind might use sounds to enforce the tiredness. You follow what I mean?
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So we're going to try that out and just experiment with this. There's like not that's the right way to do it. Just try it out and try to feel how it feels. Okay. And when I say stop, we're just going to see how it works for you. Okay. Just walk around normally. Scared. Anxious.
Your exam results are coming. Your exam results are coming.
No words, just sounds.
Oh, shucks. Yeah.
Curious. Oh, stop there. Okay, just how did it go? Could you you play players? Could you just what's the feeling of having a shadow following you around doing this?
Strange.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it helps. Yeah. Strange. Yeah.
Strange. Yeah.
A good warm-up technique, I think.
Mm.
Yeah.
Again, I think especially when you do it with young people, I think it's a good technique for getting them to lose the inhibition of acting.
Mm.
One of them isn't particularly, so it's a kind of a mutual process.
Did you feel more scared or more anxious?
I'm not sure.
Or just...
It reinforced the act. I mean, I wasn't giving it
Yeah, yeah.
my Oscar performance, but it did reinforce the experience. Yeah.
Okay, so switch in the pair. No, keep the same pair, but switch who's the shadow and who's the player. Yeah. And now, not. I don't want the shadow to use sound. I want you to use touch. And now, when touching, it's important to stay off not okay areas. But for example, if you supposed to be happy, maybe a happy touch is not like grabbing someone really hard in the arm, but a happy touch might be like putting in energy into the body. And this is there's no like this is the way to put happy when you're a shadow. Just try it out and see what happens. And I have no idea how you should always use it. Just try. Okay, so start walking around normally. Sad.
Okay.
Happy. Stressed out. Angry. Okay, thank you. Stop there.
Sorry.
I think that was good.
So, play your feedback. How was this?
Interesting.
Interesting, definitely. Yeah.
I think you got the right kind of signals, I think.
It was there's crossover with them as well, which is interesting. So if you're going for spiky, that can come with cross or anxious or anything else. So a bit of repetition goes on. Might be interesting to try it in a puppeteering way. So that you'll
Control. all
yeah.
things,
So whether
yeah.
you had someone on a chair and a rope on each arm or something like that. Might be interesting.
I know, for example, so in one game they had people shadowing a player, and the shadows sort of knew what was happening in different kind of rooms of the game. So when they felt like this character needs to be in that room doing that, they would grab the character's hand and just lead them towards that room, like you should be here and do these things. And this is a very interesting way of sort of mixing the story, or like giving, like the shadow knew what kind of story was going on. So like if you would play in a lover's drama and the girlfriend or the boyfriend was cheating on you, maybe the shadow knew that and would take you there, so you could sort of accidentally drop in on that scene, which would be more interesting for the drama than if you were sort of in the kitchen and would never know about it. So that's a way to sort of enhance the drama for the characters. How did this feel for you guys? Dreadful.
Yeah.
In what way?
Well, I think you felt dreadful for you as well. I think you didn't know what to do, and then it didn't feel right, and it was extremely off-putting.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I could see that, and it is a weird technique.
Yeah.
But I saw the ones that was the stressed technique, when you were like pointing like this, and I felt really stressed just sitting here. I was like, oh my god, and I thought it was a great forcing of the stress, like something nagging at you all the time, never stopping. So yeah, I could see the uncomfortableness of it all. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna try it one last time, so switch the rules around again. And now there will be no touching. Now you can use your voice, like talking to the character, or actually talking to the player. So the shadow can talk to the one in front. So for example, if I would go for nervous, the shadow might say, I'm never going to be able to do this, I'm never going to be able to do this. And you can do it both as the inner voice of the character, but it could also do it as like someone from the outside saying like, you're not good enough, you're not good enough. So you're still enforcing the feeling of this, enhancing the feeling of it. Okay, let's walk around normally first. Tired.
Oh, I wish.
Gosh,
Oh, where's my bed? Where did I put it? Oh, I'm so tired. Oh. What am I doing here? I don't even know. I should have got to bed way earlier.
You're looking for something, but you can't find it.
No, I think I put it somewhere. But maybe it was in the garage. Yeah, in the garage. No, it's not here. No. Over there? Let me replay this then. I was there just a moment ago, and I came from over there.
Proud.
Oh.
Proud.
I certainly put that.
You're really succeeding in doing exactly what you want.
Exactly what I planned. It's the best. I never expected this, but it's just... Could it get any better?
Okay, stop
Excellent.
there. Thank you very much. Great. How did this feel? You could we could take the chairs again, and we can maybe just go a little bit closer this way.
Yeah, that's interesting. It kind of, when you put it all together, it translates to a kind of personal soundtrack
Yeah.
for your character, as well as whether it's touching everything as well. It's kind of telling a story about your character without you.
Isn't there a movie about that kind of thing where it's also happening to the main character?
Yeah, and they've all got a band behind them walking down the street.
Yeah. How about you guys? Was this less uncomfortable?
No.
Really?
No, I don't like any of that. I don't like that. I thought that was awful.
What's awful about them? What do you feel is awful?
Well, there's no feedback. When you're the shadow, there's no feedback because you're behind. So you can't really tell. You can see their body posture, but you can't see them. So if you then had like a wing mirror in front of them that you could see, so you're not sure whether you're getting what you
So-
want from them.
You were not agreeing with his comments on your emotional state?
And both ways, I think it's very hard to get, because all you're getting is a back, and backs don't give much feedback. Whereas you're used to people's faces, I think. So
I think certainly with the last one, that influenced me the most in terms of walking, posture
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah.
Although I started off with a positive posture, it kind of reinforced
yeah.
that.
And I think this is also something that has been, when people talk about this technique or have used this technique, that is something that's, the feedback on it has been sort of like, it's very, very hard for the shadow to actually, sometimes they're just very intrusive and not helping me at all, only sort of being in my way for the game I want. And generally the advice when you use shadows is for the shadow not to be overused, that they should listen a lot and not so much interfere, but at some points just put in things.
So are there games where they have shadows the whole time?
Yes.
Oh, I was terrible.
But now you try the intense experience. Probably if that was the case, you would have that kind of a game. The shadows might interact with you like once or twice during an hour or something like that, not all the time. So now you sort of try the technique, but the technique might not be used to this intensity as you have now. Okay, I'm gonna just put up some meta techniques. There are several more than I'm gonna tell you about, but you can just get an idea of things that has been used. And one very commonly used technique is scene play, which is actually what we did in the black box. But black box is more about where you do it than actually what you do. But in the black box, you do scene play. So scene play is basically what it says. It's playing small scenes, short scenes around the characters. And usually, as you do it, you as players define what you want to play about, and then you try it out, and then maybe you as players talk about the scene again and decide, have this happened, or is this a possible way for it to happen, or things like that. But scene play could be abstract scenes, and it could be also be very realistic scenes. It could be things that have happened to the character, or things that might happen to the character, or dream scenes where you talk with angels and demons, and that's your inner voices talking to you. So they may be super abstract or very concrete, and you might use them as something that really has happened, or things that just are in the head of the character. And black box, usually when people say we're using black box at this LARP, they are saying we are using scene play in a designated area that is outside the sort of gaming area. So that's what people are referring to. It's a monologue technique. And I used it a little bit yesterday with some players who were in the black box. And a monologue is talk about inner monologues where you speak the character's inner thoughts, and we talked about this in the beginning too. And usually these two are combined. Like you do a scene, you play out a scene, and then for making it into more levels, you do a monologues in the end where the characters talk about their thoughts about the scene. So for example, yesterday we did a scene where, I think you were in the scene?
Yeah.
We did a scene where the princess and a noble warrior and one of the dandies met together, and how they met the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some tea party and things happened and people got angry and things like that, and poetry was recited and everything. But before we ended the whole scene, I asked all the characters to make an inner monologue where they describe that day. So for example, they start out there in the monologue with, when I think of the day where I had tea, I remember the beautiful poetry. I don't remember who was there because I'm the princess, but I remember the poetry. And this gives like more depths of the scene play, because you also get to know what the character is thinking, not only what they are acting as or doing. And also it's very interesting in games like we played yesterday, where people are having like double identities, to sort of actually get what is actually this character thinking right now, to get more information on that. It was also used in Just a Little Lovin'. They had a mechanics for, since the game is very much around lust, they had a mechanics for how to do sex scenes. So they used, well, they are very explicit, the sex scene, but they used sort of a combination between Arsamandi and sort of a dildo-looking like thing. So it's and you use it just to like do like this, and it's a symbol for having sex. But what was really interesting about that was not so much about like the sex scene itself, but you ended the sex scene by having an inner monologue on how this character felt about the sex scene, to actually deepen the value of playing out that scene, which could be like, yes, I finally got to fuck this this really important person, while the other one would be like, oh, this might be love for real. And then you have interesting play starting to happen between those characters, because you have so different interpretation of the same scene. Yeah. Shadows, you tried now? And shadows have also been used as angels and demons. So you have a shadow technique where one is playing the shadow of the angel and one is playing the shadow of the demon. Or the devil. So you have their inner voices sort of pushing the character in different directions. And they also have some kind of interaction between each other, where they sort of struggle to get hold of this character's life. And try to push it in different ways. So for every player playing a character in the game, there's two players playing something else too. Then there's objects with meaning. And this is one different meaning. This is something you could argue would be one of the replacement rules, but it's, for example, there's a game about a party. It's only like 4 or 5 players playing it, and they're sitting around a table. And the game master can at one point put a bottle of liquor in on the table, and they're not supposed to drink it. It's not important if they drink it or not, but the bottle of liquor is a symbol, meaning that now this must escalate because now we got really drunk. So it's a symbol, it's an object with a different meaning than it actually is. It signals something to the players what to do with their characters at that time. And this goes together with also the game mastering we were talking about before. And for example, also from Just a Little Lovin', they have feathers with different meanings. Like there's a feather for lust. And if I was talking to someone, I can sort of wave around this feather at the same time, and it will be, I also give it to them, and they could choose to accept it or not. And this will be sort of a signal, my character is sexually interested in your character, and I signal that by having it, and you can accept that sort of play invitation or decline from it by accepting the feather or not. So this is a very easy way for also me as a player being like, I don't want to go in that way with my character and not accept that feather. And then you know as the other player that, okay, I'm not going to push that direction with this player. A part of scene play that is commonly used is flash forward and flash backward. And for example, where you have an intrusive meta technique, you might stop the game and say flash forward 5 hours from now, and everyone just rearrange and you don't discuss it, you just try it out. And maybe the game master will then say, or the player that it could be that says let's do this, will say, okay, we'll have this happen or not, or we want to go this way or not, because it hasn't happened because it's a flash forward. But you can ask them if they want this or not, or want to push this or not. And flashback is going back in time and seeing how come this happened, or answer questions about the characters' backgrounds, or deepen a relationship between characters. And this could of course be played like in the LARP in an intrusive way, or just in a black box. But it's common things you do with scene play. And we have several more, but 2 more that I think is quite common. Therapy session, that's supposed to be. So the off-game meeting, I could argue that is a meta technique. That is during a long game, if you play in a group, you might decide to have off-game meetings during the LARP. So it's like every morning our group is gonna go away and stop the game for us and just talk about where am I, how am I feeling, where do I want to go with this. So we communicate how to, what kind of game we want for the rest of the LARP. And it's not harder than that. And the therapy session is, I don't think it's commonly used, but I think it's quite interesting. It's been used in the Battleship Galactica LARP, the Celestial LARP, where they couldn't take out the Viper pilots, the one in fighting outside the ship. They couldn't actually have them going out in spaceship and fighting space battles. So what they did was that when they were out on a mission, they made a scene where they played the therapy session after this mission, evaluating how it went. So you would have a therapist sitting in their meeting being like, I can see that you're, and talking to the character, that you're really angry. Is it because of what happened during this mission? And then you talk about that, and just come up with things that happen between the characters, and things that happen during this space battle mission, through the after analyzing as a therapy session.
So you're reconstructing it.
Yeah. But also you sort of construction your relationships between each other after these missions. Like maybe someone is really angry, or someone is sad, and you need to take care of that person, or whatever.